Hey, what's up? This your boy Big Man. You already know what it is, man. So let's get right to it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Benny the Butcher. Now, Benny the Butcher is a part of the collective and the record label called Griselda, right? Some rappers out of Buffalo who have been making some major waves in hip-hop recently, man. Over the last 4 years, they've gained a huge fan base internationally and, domestically, I should say, right? Now, Benny the Butcher is one of the standout acts in Griselda, man. His Tana Talk series, his Plugs I Met series, man, he's got so many different mixtape series that are successful on the independent side of the game, man. Like, I'm talking about, like, the old school type of go and find a mixtape type of crowd. You know what I mean? It's like they've got their own niche in hip hop that they etched out themselves. It's pretty cool, man. And that's why a lot of people respect Griselda. That's why a lot of hip hop purists and a lot of the lyricists, quote unquote, in hip hop, they link up with them and do songs, and it's an even trade, it seems like. Now, Benny the Butcher has been on tour, and he's been touring internationally. He's been overseas. And it looks like something from his past has come back to haunt him. So he went out and he put out some tweets that let people know that he just caught another felony case. Now, before we break down this story from hiphopdx.com and talk about these tweets, do me a favor. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and man, let's get it. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, man, let's talk about Benny the Butcher, man, catching a felony charge. And this possibly costing him a lot of money and maybe even his freedom in the future, man. And it seems to span from an old case. Now, there's a story from hiphopdx.com where the headline says this. It says, Benny the Butcher says UK shows canceled over old FBI reports, plus new felony charge. So I don't know, I've heard Benny the Butcher in interviews before, right? And he's talked candidly about his past life in the streets and about his crew, being looked at by the feds and things like that. But I didn't know he had any cases that were lingering out there from back in those days because it seems so far apart. It seems so long ago because Benny the Butcher has been, doing his thing in the rap game now for what, 4 or 5 years? I mean, Griselda has really made their imprint on the game. Like, they've had, like, these big, interviews where they've talked to, like, sports, all sorts of publications, man. Complex Sports, media, like ESPN and stuff like that when they did this whole series on Buffalo. And just really mainstreaming it almost, but still remaining independent. But I'm guessing he's got a case that's been lingering out there since back in the day. Now, the story starts off by saying this. It says, Benny the Butcher is currently overseas, taking his Tana Talk and Burden of Proof raps to the international territory. But according to a tweet from Griselda Records rapper, it's not exactly going to plan. Now, on Saturday, April 9th, Benny revealed several of his shows in the UK had been canceled over his criminal record while admitting he'd picked up a recent felony charge, man. That's crazy, man. You hate to see somebody getting money. They on tour. And the way that rappers getting paid today, he's getting a nice little bag, man. And the thing about Griselda, and I want to throw this out there, is they've got like a following. Like, I want to say like a huge underground following, and it consists of people who like all sorts of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like their merchandise, their hats and all that stuff sell out immediately when they drop. Like everything like be sold out on their store. And I think Westside Gunn did a really good job of putting them out there as a brand and actually putting their merch out there early and got fans interested in buying the hats and stuff like that. Like it's always flying off the shelves, right? Now, in the story, it continues by saying this. It says, as he explained on Twitter, and this is the tweet that he put out there right here. It says this. It says, UK shows canceled based on old FBI reports and a new felony charge I just caught last week that y'all won't find out about until my documentary. Now, when I first heard about that, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just, be open about it and talk about it? Like, is this a way to promote your documentary? But who would say that they caught a felony charge and they didn't? Because it's easy for us to look this up. You know what I'm saying? His next tweet, he said this. He said, going to Amsterdam and Paris for sure. So letting it be known to his fans that his shows in the UK were being canceled, but he was still going to make it to Paris and Amsterdam. So, if you're in that area, he was still going to stop by and do his shows. Now, Benny the Butcher grew up in Buffalo, New York, where he has ultimately turned to a life of crime to support himself. During a March 2021 interview with Hip Hop DX, he talked about leaving his drug dealing past behind to focus on his rap career. Now, in quotes, it says this: "I got into being from a neighborhood that was blanketed with it," he said. "The whole history of the neighborhood was about drug dealing. I was drug dealing on the block, and I was born on that block. When my mom birthed me, I was brought home from the hospital to that block. So the hustlers outside was doing what they was doing." So he obviously comes from a neighborhood that's been known for crime and known for hustling and drug dealing and stuff like that. And he felt obligated earlier on in his life, per se, just to, maintain that tradition, represent that block, be a hustler on that block and be about what that block was about. But the problem with trying to maintain those negative traditions like that, and represent for this block is those things can come back to bite you later, man. So obviously Benny the Butcher is feeling that now. Now, the story finishes by saying this. It says, "As I grew up, the dudes, my friends, those dudes turned into my brothers. So I did what they did. It's just the path I chose at the time. I got 3 felonies. I've been back and forth and in and out of prison." So that was him in quotes talking about his story, about being back and forth in and out of prison. And in his Vlad interview, he talked about that, man. He did a lot of time, man. And that's what comes with that whole street life and stuff like that. So it's always better to stay out of the streets and find you something positive to do. You know what I mean? Now, the story ends also by saying this. It says, "Those in the States will still have a chance to catch Benny the Butcher in concert. Following Coachella later this month, Conway the Machine and Westside Gunn will join Benny on a North American tour. The run kicks off in Chicago on May 10th and wraps up in Los Angeles on June 3rd. So it looks like that the whole Griselda crew, or at least the nucleus that we know is Griselda, because there's other artists that are involved with Griselda, right? That Conway the Machine and Westside Gunn, who's pretty much the brains behind the operation, put everything into movement. It looks like they're going to be going on tour, and Benny should be expected to be there on the tour. Now, I wonder what this felony case is about. I wonder if it has anything to do with stuff way a long time ago, or this is something recent, because why hit him with it now? Especially while he's on tour, he's overseas. Obviously you're going to have to come back in and check in to see what that's about and check with your lawyers and fight the case. And just because he's being charged with a felony doesn't mean that he's guilty. So we'll see how this goes. And man, I might actually also check his documentary out to see what the whole story behind this is, because that's where it seems like Benny the Butcher is leading his fans. Now with that, what do you guys think? Do you think that Benny the Butcher just caught a new felony out of nowhere? Or do you think that maybe this was something old that was always lingering over his head? Now with that, this has been your boy Big Man. Do me a favor. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And make sure you hit that notification bell, so that way you get a notification every time I drop this hot content. And we out of here. Peace.